of the year. Expert installation from trusted professionals. Visit arsofvirginia.com.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, America.
Good morning. Good morning.
She was America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds, passing away just one day after losing her daughter, Carrie Fisher. She dazzled the world in the golden age of Hollywood, from Singing in the Rain to the unsinkable Molly Brown.
I'm unsinkable.
Hollywood in shock after the loss of mother and daughter, and the new interview overnight with her son.
Good morning.
A hacking payback, Russia facing imminent retaliation for those cyber attacks that plagued Hillary Clinton and the DNC and helped Donald Trump. The Obama administration set to announce new punishments for Russia, why intelligence officials are so sure the Kremlin, in fact, meddled in the American presidential election.
Mid-air meltdown, chaos erupting overnight on a Delta flight.
The authorities called. They should be at the gate when you get there.
The unruly passengers caught on camera, punching others on board, forcing the plane to turn around. Police rushing in to defuse the incident.
Why? For what? For what?
What sparked the emergency landing?
Bombshell lawsuit, the brother of JonBenet Ramsey suing over this documentary, demanding $750 million. He claims the TV network falsely accused him of killing his own sister 20 years after the murder.
From ABC News, live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning. The world reacting to the stunning death of the Hollywood legend Debbie Reynolds. The star first captured the world's imagination in Singing in the Rain, tap dancing with Gene Kelly. She was only 19 years old when they filmed this movie.
When I think of Debbie Reynolds, this is what I think of, this iconic role in Singing in the Rain. She said the two toughest things she had to do in her life, giving birth and doing this movie, because she had no dance experience. She's 19 years old and she's dancing next to a legend.
And she
like Gene
pulled
Kelly.
it off.
She certainly did. She was part of our soundtrack, a personal soundtrack, Zippity Doo Dah, Singing in the Rain, Good Morning. The beloved actress passing away just one day after losing her daughter, Carrie Fisher. Their relationship, yes, it was rocky at times throughout the years, but their connection undeniable, unbreakable at the end. Carrie said she always wanted to be like her mom.
You can really see the intensity in that shot. Fans paying tribute overnight at Debbie Reynolds' star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and more than 1 million tweets mentioning America's sweetheart overnight.
Debbie Reynolds apparently suffered a stroke at the home of her son Todd while making funeral arrangements for Carrie. Matt Gutman begins our coverage from Hollywood this morning. Matt, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Paula. It was a devastating 1-2 punch. Barely a day after her daughter died, a grieving Debbie Reynolds collapsed at her home. Her son telling us it was a massive stroke. She was rushed to the hospital, but doctors told the family there was nothing they could do. While there is no official cause of death yet, her son is telling us it is fair to say she died of heartbreak. This morning, Hollywood is reeling.
May the force be with you.
Barely 24 hours after Star Wars icon Carrie Fisher died,
I knew I'd seen you.
her mother and America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds followed, passing away Wednesday at the age of 84. Son Todd Fisher by her side, telling ABC News overnight about his mother's final moments.
She was very peaceful and quiet, and it happened very, very gently.
Reynolds had been huddling with family at the Beverly Hills compound she shared with Carrie Fisher when just after 1 p.m., ambulances rushing her to the hospital, seen in this video obtained by TMZ.
EMS 14, respond with engine 108 and rescue 78, stroke.
Fisher telling ABC News she suffered a major stroke.
When we got to the hospital, they quickly told us that this was not something that could be dealt with, and, you know, it was not going to be very long, and it wasn't.
Reynolds dying just hours later.
She loved taking care of my sister more than anything. So she gets to do that, and that's what she wanted to do.
Overnight, a memorial forming at Reynolds' star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Nearby, fans holding vigil, lightsabers at the ready, beside Fisher's own makeshift Star of Fame. This morning, family and friends paying tribute to both legends. Fisher's half-sister Jolie Fisher writing, "Some of the magic people have left the tribe. For the moment, I am inconsolable." And posting this photo with the caption,
Godspeed, Mama.
No word yet from the family about funeral arrangements for either Fisher or Reynolds, but overnight, Todd telling us that in the hours before his mother died yesterday, she told him she lamented not getting to say goodbye to Carrie, that she was grieving deeply and that she wanted to be with Carrie again. He said barely 30 minutes later, she suffered that stroke. She was gone hours after that. Dan.
It's incredibly sad. Matt Gutman, thank you. Debbie Reynolds lived in the spotlight for more than 6 decades, and what a complex life it was, by turns dazzling and, frankly, disastrous. This morning, we look back.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've talked the whole night through.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Debbie Reynolds danced her way into the popular consciousness at the age of just 19, starring with Gene Kelly in one of Hollywood's most beloved musicals, Singin' in the Rain. Her fame cemented in 1964 with her role as boisterous heroine.
That ship may be down, but not me. I'm unsinkable.
The unsinkable Molly Brown, for which she scored an Oscar nomination. And throughout her life and her career, Debbie Reynolds proved over and over that she was, in fact, unsinkable.
I knew if he knew.
Dazzling with her many talents.
I'm an actress.
And that infectious smile, all while navigating a tumultuous personal life. Her first husband, Eddie Fisher, left her for her then best friend, the bombshell beauty Elizabeth Taylor, in what was the most talked about Hollywood scandal of the day. Reynolds discussed it here on GMA in 2013.
That was an incident that happens in your life that is an unhappy time, and you grow up a lot, but it's just something that you have to live through.
Her relationship with her daughter Carrie Fisher, who died on Tuesday, one of her most defining and perhaps most complicated.
I wanted to do what my mother did. I wanted to be like my mother. I worship my mother.
Got it from Eddie. Eddie's side.
It was a roller coaster. Carrie Fisher documented the highs and lows in her book and movie, Postcards from the Edge.
Am I too late for the family?
For years, they were estranged as Fisher struggled with substance abuse and mental illness.
She didn't talk to me for probably 10 years. So that was the most difficult time of all. Very painful. Very heartbreaking.
But time helped heal the wounds.
I would say that Carrie and I have finally found happiness.
Mother and daughter closer than ever in their final years, even living next door to one another.
Mommy, I'm home.
As seen in the upcoming HBO documentary, Bright Lights. Both of those bright lights now dimmed. Although on screen, both will shine on for years. For more on this story, let's bring in Jess Cagle, the editorial director at People magazine, and also ABC News senior medical contributor, Dr. Jen Ashton. Dr. Ashton, let me start with you. There's talk of broken heart syndrome this morning with mom's death coming so soon after her daughter's. Is that a valid medical phenomenon?
It is a real medical condition. I think it is possible, figuratively and literally, to die of a broken heart. It doesn't seem to be the case for Debbie Reynolds, but there have been reports of spouses dying hours or days apart from each other. Certainly the loss of a child is known to be one of life's greatest stressors, whether that child is 6 or 60. So when you're talking about an elderly person with known pre-existing medical conditions, certainly the loss of a child can be a massive emotional and a physical event. No
And
question.
Jess, let's bring you in. We heard in that piece, as Dan said, mother and daughter, they were estranged for about a decade, but they had so many personal tragedies between the two of them. Do you think that gave them an unbreakable bond and ultimately brought them back together?
Ultimately, it did. I mean, and I think that Carrie Fisher went through, you know, as she spoke about so publicly, a lot of addiction issues. And so I think probably through a lot of therapy, she learned to be grateful for this woman who had shaped her life and made this life possible for her and given her this extraordinary life. And she learned to let go of the resentments because, you know, Debbie Reynolds was great on stage and she was great on screen. At home, things were much more difficult for her. Life was hard sometimes.
Yeah, life certainly was hard, but she had that breakout role at the age of 19 and Singing in the Rain next to Gene Kelly. But her career spanned over 60 years. Why do you think she had such longevity in Hollywood?
Well, she was incredibly talented. She was incredibly well-liked. She was a great, great comic actress. Underrated, one of the best. And so, while one generation knows her from Singing in the Rain, another generation knows her from Will and Grace, as Grace's mom. And she was fantastic. If you've ever seen Mother with Albert Brooks, she should have won an Oscar for that film. She was always great. And frankly, she loved to work and she had to work.
Jess Cagle, Dr. Ashton, thank you both. We really appreciate it. We're going to speak more with Dr. Ashton in our next hour about Carrie Fisher and her mom and this death coming so close together. Also overnight, a tweet. Take a look at this from Carrie Fisher's co-star from Star Wars, tweeting in a visual about what a cruel, cruel year this has been in our culture with so many celebrities lost.
A cruel year and a cruel week indeed.
Yes.
For everyone. And we want to move now to that major storm in the Northeast. Heavy snow and blistering winds are expected to hammer parts of the Great Lakes in New England. It is going to be a mess for the rest of the region. Rob Marciano joining us, and we're talking rain and a whole lot of slush.
Yeah, it's going to be a nasty day. We start you out west. The southern tip of this storm brought a standstill to Interstate 70. A 15-car pilot there in Summit County had to shut it down for a time, and part of the system now, the energy getting into the Northeast. Look at all these advisories. Go all the way down into the Carolinas with wraparound moisture with this. We time it out by noon. It starts kind of as a wet snow across the I-95 corridor, then it's all rain. Interior sections will see not only snow, but wind-blown snow. It'll be coming down sideways at times, and we could see over a foot of snow and heavy wet stuff. Could see some power outages because of this, and we'll talk about the cold air behind this for New Year's Eve in just a few minutes. Back over to you guys.
Rob, thank you. Today, the White House is expected to announce how it will respond to allegations of Russian hacking during the presidential campaign. What will these new punitive measures be, and will the Russians retaliate? ABC's David Curley is on the story from Washington. David, good morning to you.
Morning, Dan. Sources are telling us the Obama administration will be very public today in announcing retaliation and providing more details on why it is so sure Russia hacked and interfered with the U.S. election.
This morning, sources tell ABC News Russia will soon face punishment for meddling in the U.S. election. The Obama administration getting ready to announce economic sanctions as early as today.
It is now time for Russia to understand enough is enough.
This public retaliation coming after weeks of debate inside the White House on a response to those cyber attacks leading up to the election. Attacks U.S. intelligence agencies say were meant to embarrass Democratic Party leaders, including Hillary Clinton, and help Donald Trump. The president-elect weighing in on the coming sanctions, taking the opposite position.
I think we ought to get on with our lives. I think that computers have complicated lives very greatly. The whole age of computer has made it where nobody knows exactly what's going on. We have speed, we have a lot of other things, but I'm not sure you have the kind of security that you need.
Martha Raddatz asked President Obama about the evidence of Russian involvement.
Just to be clear, do you believe Vladimir Putin himself authorized the hack?
What I can tell you is that the intelligence that I've seen gives me great confidence in their assessment that the Russians carried out this hack.
Russia's foreign ministry already posting a response on its website saying, quote, if Washington actually takes new hostile steps, then it will get a response.
Now, this is not the end of the Obama investigation of the hacks themselves, and it is unlikely that this will be the only retaliatory steps that the U.S. takes against Russia, including the possibility, Dan, of covert cyber actions.
Yeah, well, in terms of covert operations, who or what would we be going after and how?
Well, there's a wide range. If they know exactly who did these hacks, they could go after them directly. They could go after members of the government. They could go after some of the oligarchs. There is a vast possibility. The question is, do you want to start a cyber war? That's something that the Obama administration has been very worried about as it's been talking about what action to take against Russia.
Yeah, a lot of fear that this could open up a Pandora's box. David Curley in Washington, thank you.
Thanks, David, and thanks, Dan. Staying in politics and more fiery rhetoric from President-elect Donald Trump slamming U.S. policy toward Israel in a series of angry tweets and accusing President Obama of hindering the transition of power and then backtracking. ABC's Mary Bruce is at the White House for us this morning with more. Mary, seems the two have talked.
Good morning. Yeah, for weeks they've tried to bury the hatchet after the contentious campaign, but now Donald Trump is taking on Obama's foreign policy. The president-elect has had some harsh words for the president and also some mixed messages. Overnight, Donald Trump emerged from his Mar-a-Lago estate with praise for President Obama and the presidential handoff.
Our staffs are getting along very well, and I'm getting along very well with him, other than a couple of statements that I responded to, and we talked about it.
With boxing promoter Don King by his side, the president-elect said he just had a very good talk with the president.
I actually thought we covered a lot of territory.
But just hours earlier, a very different tone. Trump slamming Obama for getting in the way of the transition. Trump tweeting, "Doing my best to disregard the many inflammatory President Obama statements and roadblocks. Thought it was going to be a smooth transition. Not." This is the current and future president face off over one of America's top allies, Israel. Trump tweeting, "We cannot continue to let Israel be treated with such total disdain and disrespect." The president-elect has been criticizing the Obama administration for allowing the UN to condemn Israel for building settlements, a move that broke with long-standing tradition. Secretary of State John Kerry is passionately defending the decision, saying those settlements put the possibility of peace in jeopardy.
And we cannot properly defend and protect Israel if we allow a viable two-state solution to be destroyed before our own eyes.
Infuriated Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is firing back.
I must express my deep disappointment with the speech today of John Kerry.
Now, as for Trump, he says Kerry's remarks speak for themselves. The president-elect says he thinks Israel is being treated very unfairly and that the UN has tremendous potential, but isn't living up to it. Dan?
Yes, and Trump is promising big change come January 20th. Mary, thank you. We turn now to the chaos erupting midair overnight. Two unruly passengers fighting and punching others on board, forcing an emergency landing. ABC's Candace Gibson is here with more on what happened on this flight. Candace, good morning.
Dan, good morning. This was absolutely a wild scene. The flight rerouted, punches thrown, police forced to storm the plane, far from your routine cross-country flight. A mid-flight meltdown, forcing a Delta flight from Minneapolis to Los Angeles to turn around only an hour after takeoff.
2565, we do have the authorities called. They should be at the gate when you get there.
All right, on way to Gulf 12, thank you.
According to the passenger who took this video and gave it to ABC News, the ruckus started when a woman seated in coach tried to use the restroom shortly after the Delta plane took off. When the flight attendant told her to sit down, she and her partner reportedly began shouting. The captain allegedly came on the intercom twice, warning them if they didn't calm down, the plane would be heading back to the gate. The couple didn't listen. When the plane touched down back at Minneapolis-St. Paul, the police stormed the aircraft. But the couple didn't go quietly, one of them appearing to punch a passenger on their forced march to the exit door. The FBI now investigating the incident. So the flight eventually continued to L.A. without those unruly passengers. Of course, that couple this morning likely facing federal and local charges. Dan, Paula?
Not who you want to be seated next to on a flight.
Can you imagine how disconcerting that must have been for all the other passengers on the flight, not knowing what's going on?
Disconcerting and annoying. They had to get delayed.
That too.
Speaking of somebody who's completely not annoying, let's get it over to Dr. Rob Marciano. Only annoying when you have bad forecasts.
I knew you were going to couch it. Why couldn't you just stick with the compliment and go with that? All right, our next worldwide holiday, the big one is coming up on Saturday night, New Year's Eve. Here we go. The ball drops, a chance of a rain or snow shower. I think it'll be after midnight. 39 degrees the temperature, so about seasonable temperatures there. You look for more precip maybe down around D.C. and also across the West Coast, southwesterly here. Hollywood, 47 degrees. Might see some showers here in the Grapevine. I-5 might see some snowy weather there, and down across the southeast a little bit on the west side as well. Happy New Year to you. Rainy Cities now brought to you by CarMax.
You know how it is. Someone does something nice for you and you feel obligated to do something nice back. Maybe your aunt sent you a crocheted scarf and you sent her a thank you note and the crochet just kept on coming. Well, at CarMax, you don't have to return the favor. They'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from them, because feeling obligated is uncomfortable and tight in places it shouldn't be. CarMax won't make you feel that way. Lucky you. I feel like a quilt.
Mainly rain across the area. That should be ending about 8 to 9 a.m. this morning, but there has been a little bit of sleet and light snow reported areas well north and west of D.C. So for Carroll, for Frederick County, Jefferson, Clark, Warren, Page areas north and west, that winter weather advisory in the high spots of West Virginia. We'll see a bit of snow accumulating through today. Today's high just 50 degrees will clear out. Then tomorrow we get the wind and the cold and wind chill temperatures at that 40-degree high that'll only be in the